Okay, Andrea, we just watched Nelly Knows Mystery, a Fatal Engagement. Does this sit like the advice you get from your best friend that you look back and say, thank you for it? Or is it the advice that they gave you that has you ending up sitting next to them in jail? Let's find out.
What? Thankfully, I've never had that advice, but I'm excited to dive in.
You had some different friends than I did. So, all right. Well, this is Eric.
And this is Andrea.
This is Hallmark Mysteries and
And
more.
more.
This podcast was created by fans for fans and is not affiliated with or sponsored by Hallmark or the Hallmark channel.
Okay, Andrea. All right. So before we hop into it, I will say Hallmark's on a little roll over there on the regular channel with some pretty good movies going on. So this is kind of nice.
I'm so excited. I just posted that too, and that I was pretty much all of August has been stellar lineup for me. Now, I will say the one that's airing this coming weekend, the shoe one, doesn't look as great as the others, but
Is
we'll
it?
see. I mean, I think they put it on like Labor Day weekend on purpose to kind of hide it in, but then the rest of the fall looks wonderful. So I'm excited. I feel like they really, you can tell the writer's strike was really affecting them in the beginning of the year. And they have really, I think, have shown us such great movies the last, this month. And I think coming into fall, they look pretty good too.
Yeah, and the thing is, they've been like really just fresh. It's not like, oh,
Yeah.
hey, grant the Costa Rican wedding, that was a Johnson movie too. And yeah, that was sort of this traditionally type thing, but it still was kind of fun in its own unique way. And obviously, we talked the main leads there really carried it, but just the other ones have just been all like really good, I think, fun writing, which is, I was talking to a coworker who she's like, oh, I love the holiday movies, even though they're all the same thing. I'm like, no, 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 that's like the hallmark of 3, 4+ years ago. Now, yeah, they still have some of those, but they definitely have a lot of movies like the ones we have just seen these last couple weeks. So exciting.
Yeah. Yes. Well,
And
yeah.
sorry, and we got Hallmark Plus coming around the corner. So it's going to be interesting to see what those movies are like. Like, are they getting the same kind of budget and everything that they're giving the network shows?
Yeah. And the TV shows and all of the things that they're going to be throwing on there. And then I did find out that, so I'm going to have to keep my friendly after all, because they will not be playing like the movies live. So if you still like to watch them live, you're going to have a way or some sort of device to have
Right.
that happen. So I'm going to have to keep my friendly.
Well, I didn't convince you that it's best just to watch it the day after and get that
No,
flow going.
no. I mean, if people are watching this or maybe hearing my audio different, like I'm on vacation right now. And so I'm in the East Coast. And so I'm in North Carolina. And I was asking people who are on the East Coast, like, the mystery movies air at 9 o'clock at night. Like, that is brutal. So I watched the first hour of this, Nelly Knows, and then I went to bed. And then I watched, it again from the start the next morning because it was so hard to stay up past
Oh yeah.
what, 10 o'clock. Like, even though I'm like, oh, if you're into a movie, for me, like, I have a 1 year old. So I'm like, I kind of have to get to bed. Otherwise, I know it's going to be brutal the next day. And even watching like the Saturday night movie, I watched that live, but I like paused it. And so by the time I finished, it was 10:30. And I'm like, it's just so interesting to see just the difference that being on the East Coast makes for these movies. I'm spoiled. Like Central, we are spoiled. I think we have the best time for like a
Uh,
7 o'clock airing or 8 o'clock airing.
I'll go with me over in the specific time. But it's funny you say that because my friends, especially for like sports, they'll be like, I haven't seen the end of a game in I don't know how long because yeah, the games start at 9 o'clock and or 3 hours, 3+ hours or something like that. So,
So long. So
but
long.
when being a West Coaster, I wake up basically to sports and they can start as early as 9 o'clock in the morning. So, all right. But we're not
Long
here to
day.
talk about sports and time zones. We are here to talk about Nelly Doe's mysteries.
Yes. All right. So here's the recap. Local advice columnist with knowledge of towns. That's his I just copied this from what it said online. That doesn't make sense. Secrets get entangled in a murder case, clashing with the detective leading the investigation. That is an interesting. That was from IMDb.
All right.
Typos in there, but I'm very curious. So as we talked about before, I have watched When Calls the Heart. I watched one season last year, and so I'm familiar, with We and Rosemary a little bit. I know you have not, so this is also going to be I think, an interesting take to see what you think versus maybe what I think, because I've watched a little bit of When Calls the Heart. So for myself, this is going to land at a 3.5. As I said maybe a couple episodes ago, have the mysteries gotten too silly? Do you remember me bringing that up?
Yep.
And we were a little concerned, or I more so than you. And I feel like this one definitely, of all the critiques I saw online, that was a big one. It was very silly. I would put Crime Time ahead of this. If I found those two to be kind of similar in terms of their more slapstick comedy with a mystery thrown in. Although I did think this mystery was really good. I enjoyed the 1920s kind of bumper big band music that they had going on, in between scenes, and how they let us in. I thought it had a good pacing to it. The setting was amazing. The side characters, I enjoyed all of them. Like when I had to pick a character for our character corner, like there was a lot to pick from, which is always a good sign, because I think in a mystery, having those people that you can, rely on, that you want to see more of, is so vital. I think that Nelly, if people gave up on this in the first hour and they didn't like maybe how Pascale was playing the character, I do think it was toned down that second hour, because I kind of noticed that shift from, again, when I shut it off, went to bed, watched the whole thing in full the next day, and I did notice a little turn. And then I just watched that second hour again before we hopped on here, just to make sure I watched both sides of it twice. And I did notice a difference between, like, maybe how really in your face, bubbly, almost ditzy personality was playing, which is tougher, I think, to grasp for a mystery, because you're supposed to be the one who's out there helping solve this mystery. And it seems like you can't put, your shoe on the right foot type of situation happening. So I think that was toned down a little bit, which I think helped the movie. And I see potential. I enjoyed Kavan, and I liked how they played off each other. Of course, they have great chemistry. They've been acting together for many years. And having watched When Calls the Heart, did I see some Rosemary in there? Yes. A little bit of that kind of bubbly personality that she plays. And so I know that was probably one of the biggest pieces that I saw when I looked to see what other people were thinking. Because I was kind of like, oh, I'm enjoying this, but I can see where this might start to get annoying after, maybe the first 30 minutes. So that's kind of where I stood. But now, having you not seen When Calls the Heart, I'm very curious. What do you think?
All right, before we hop to that, I opened up just quickly the Hallmark version. And Hallmark, here's what they say. When advice columnist Nelly finds her childhood friend Dahlia's boyfriend dead, she joins Detective Hogan to help find the killer. However, as suspicions creep in, Dahlia becomes a prime suspect. Hallmark did better than IMDb.
That's a better one.
Yeah. All right. Well, first, before we get going, do you know what a nosy Nelly is? Or is that like something like the phrase, whatever, has just so gone away? Have you heard
I mean,
like nosy
I've
Nelly?
heard it. Like,
Okay.
you're just sticking your nose where it doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's funny. I didn't even ever put two and two together until way later. But then I would guess that like it wasn't really super common for me, and I'm 15 years older than you. And so I would imagine, like, if I was asking my kids about a nosy Nelly, they probably would be maybe 50-50 on one of them maybe has heard it and one of them hasn't. So, but I thought it was kind of a fun play on the name, for what it was. I assume that's where they went, where they got the Nelly from. And especially with her being the advice columnist and stuff. So, all right. But first, all right, I'm gonna get the bad out of the way. And you kind of touched on this. And for me, it's more of a frustration at Hallmark for releasing this movie when they did, because it just came on the heels of Tip Line, which was spectacular. And it had that fun, quirky Maggie who, was kind of similar in the vein of it. Like we're talking about the fun mystery. And then next we've got the Cases of Mystery Lane. Yeah, we have Jane over on Hallmark Plus now, but as far as the network goes, then we have Cases, which is another quirky mystery. And while yes, I probably do like them more than you do, I just wish it would have been spread out, that we could have had something else in between them. And that's not anything on the movie. That's more or less Hallmark's
We had Jazz Ramsey.
scheduling it. Oh, you're right. We did have Jazz Ramsey. I guess that says a lot, doesn't it? That
And that was
says
complete opposite of the silliness. Let's say
that
that.
says exactly. I guess they needed that. All right, I take it back. I take it back. But I guess when you stick a completely, unfortunately, forgettable movie in there, and I liked it more than you did, so that says something too. Yikes! All right, but here's the other thing. I think I chose the wrong career. I need to be
Oh
an
no.
advice columnist in a little tiny small town so I can drive an $80,000 BMW, live in this gorgeous huge house with an amazing wardrobe. I mean, I don't know. Nelly makes the bucks. So, you know, just obviously chose the wrong career. I should be doing Nelly work. So, but I mean, here nor there. I would have thought she'd be driving like the more like the little Corolla or something like that or whatever. But no, she had her nice BMW convertible there that she drove around that was just spotless. So, but speaking of the wardrobe, so the costume designer, her name is Aurelia Kirkozy. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it. She's been like an assistant, looking at her IMDb on several movies, and this seems to be like her first time being in charge. And I love what she did. They start with, her first scene. Nellie has that pink on, and then finishes with the purple, which, when you think about it, it matches the movie poster, the
Mm.
primary color palette. She's got the whole Sandra D thing that you can tell she's inspired there. That just nails it. I loved her wardrobe through the entire movie. And
I second that.
as you said, the soundtrack, it was fun. I said it was more campy 60s, 70s jazz, Batman, like Adam West Batman TV stuff that was going on that, sort of once again added to the quirkiness of the movie. But then it seemed like for me at the very end, it kind of was inconsistent and died away. Like the final bit, it wasn't there anymore for me. But
Yes.
whatever. I still liked it. I thought it just added a lot of fun to it. And as you said, I think it contributed to the pacing. I thought this movie had great pacing for me. The entire cast, like it was a really good ensemble cast. The secondary characters, they were all equally fun, and I just really liked all of them. But then we'll get to Nelly and Kavan. Oh, Nelly and Kavan. I guess it would be Pascale and Kavan, or Nelly and Mick, whichever we want to go. I thought their banter was fantastic. Like the script that Catherine Wagner gave, she just, you can tell she sat around watching Scooby Doo as a kid with sort of that influence of the way that they talked and, interacted with each other. And then Dave Stresser, the director, I thought he brought it out. And like I say, I haven't seen um When Calls the Heart. I saw, I think, like the first 2 or 3 episodes back when it was, you know, before the current whole cast. So they weren't on it. So I can't tell you what they're like in it. But just like the banter and the way they played off each other, like I think personally, once again, not having seen it, that it's kind of an insult just to say, oh, they're so good together because they have history. I think they just really act well. And yes, they have their history, and like little things like that probably helps make it a little easier. But I like I said, I loved him. And Pascal, she was spectacular. She, once again, you brought up Crime Time. I said, just like Holland Roden and Lindy Greenwood, they could be these characters who, for me, could easily have fallen into being obnoxious, but I found them endearing. I thought they just towed that line really well where they're fun. And like you said, I think Nelly definitely was way more on the quirkier side, but I think that was part of what her whole character was supposed to be. And I'll touch on it in just a second, which there, but also with Pascale, like her nonverbal and like just the little quirps that she had or quips, like I thought that was really good, and I really enjoyed it. And going to like why she is the way she is, I liked how they gave it the backstory when they were sitting around and she was saying like, oh, I made the choice. I wasn't going to be sad. I made this choice, to which for me it seemed like, yeah, she was so hurt when her fiance was killed in the car crash that she chose she was going to be this extremely upbeat, just, happy person no matter what kind of thing. And so I actually think it gave to this character who you could think of didn't have depth. I think it gave depth to it. So I like that. And then Kavan, he was equally good but he provided that balance, right? Because he had quirky Pascal, and then him who is still funny, but he was kind of like the straight man of it, right? Where his lines weren't that crazy funny, but they still hit for me. And then the last thing I'll say is they dropped a little hairband into the script, of which I talked to you. I said, hey, I don't get to watch this one live because I'm going with my wife to see Def Leppard, to which you said, oh, that sounds, terribly painful and everything, right? And yes, I am not this whole hairband guy myself. And so when it was Poison, I just laughed because after the concert and we're walking home and my wife's like, well, thanks for going because I've been to now, I think this is my third concert that Def Leppard that I've gone to with her. And I was like, you know what? I'm just thankful that I've learned like Def Leppard that I can tolerate them. I'm just glad you don't like Poison. And then it was Poison who is in this one. So I was like, oh, good God. Terrible. Hate Poison, sorry. They're just terrible. So there you go. All in all, I didn't want to give my ranking at the beginning, but I gave it a 4. I loved the quirkiness of it. But once again, I think, everyone has what they look for in a mystery. I like these ones that are fun, just weird characters and all of that, probably more than a lot of people. And I think this is probably going to be one of those movies where we'll see what the results come in, but probably pretty divisive where people seem probably either liked it or hated it, I would guess.
You did, and
Uh,
I'm a little shocked. Um, well, and
You,
yes, from
why,
what
you're
every,
shocked? Why, did you think I was going to hate it?
I thought you were going to be like a 3. I thought you were
I
going to
like,
be very similar to me. Like I thought you were. I did not think you were going to love it. Like
that's
you
good.
really, really loved this.
I did. Like I said, I, I
You
thought
are, from
their
what I have seen
banter,
and what I've heard, definitely the minority. Most people that sent me DMs, very much complete opposite of that. And I was more neutral. I mean, I didn't love it, didn't hate it. This is one where I could go either way. Yeah, I'll take another, but I don't need another. So that's where it landed kind of for me. So you really want another.
oh yeah. Like I said, I just, especially if we're able to keep all the community, all those secondary characters and get a little more of them in it as well. But I just found the two of them absolutely delightful the way they played off each other.
Interesting. Well, the mystery minute. For me, I really enjoyed the mystery. I thought it was Peter pretty much going into it. And I listened to your interview with Kavan and Pascale, and they dropped a lot of red herrings, they said, and there definitely was. Like everyone could have been a suspect. And so it kind of kept me guessing. I mean, really all the way up until the end, because they kept going. And then you're like, oh, it's this person. Then you're like, no, there's too much time left. It can't be this person. And then it's another person. No, it's not this person either. One more layer. So I really liked that aspect of it where it kept you on your toes. And I didn't see this one coming. And so I appreciated that. But if you know me, sometimes I don't get the mysteries. I mean, I've watched My Murder She Wrote, and sometimes I forget who the killer is. My husband always makes fun of me. And I've seen him like all a bazillion times. I'm like, I forgot. What did you think?
So I'm kind of, I guess maybe like you, but exact opposite of you. So this is one where I thought it was the story and the characters were really the focus, and the mystery was kind of the background. And once again, I don't mind that at all, especially if you have good pacing and it's just fun. Um, so I also didn't guess who it was, but unlike you, I guess we didn't have, and maybe it is the way to keep it ambiguous. I don't think they really gave us many like real strong red herrings where you're like going
They all
down
were.
there.
Jody,
Right. That's the thing. It's like
I thought they all
everybody,
were strong.
that's the thing is like everybody could have done it, but they didn't really,
The
because a
sister?
lot of mysteries, what they'll do is they'll just take you down a road like pretty deep, and then you realize nope, and then take you down another one. Whereas this one, it just sort of stayed on the sort of more the surface where you're like, it could be anybody because they're not, giving any too big a clues as to who it is. And that's why I didn't guess who it was because nothing really went too strong for it, other than I knew it wasn't going to be Delia, or Dahlia.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
said, I knew it wasn't going to be her just because it can't be, right? But other than that, I thought it could have been anybody, which I found fun. And I'll be honest, the one thing though, um, was getting back to the mystery minute of it. What I really liked was how the detective went ahead and fairly early on appreciated the nosy sleuth, the nosy Nelly, right? And that Nelly helped things along, but she didn't actually solve the case. It just sort of stumbled into her, right? She was there and the trouble came to her, and it was actually Mac who did solve, or Mick. I kept wanting to call him Mac. It was Mick who really actually did solve the case, which is good because a lot of the time you have a completely incompetent police guy and it requires you know, the nosy Nelly to solve it. She was just there and the killer came to her, right? So I really enjoyed that, but mostly I just loved how the fact of, even though they had that very that beginning scene was also classic when Mick's like, Sheriff, I think we should go discuss this privately. And she just stares at him like, what? And he's like, all right, I guess this is the way it is. And so I thought that was, really cute. And it's kind of like we had a similar thing when we talked about tip line, how we liked it when the detective or the captain was like pretty much, nope, you're going to work with her kind of thing. So I found that quite fun.
Well, romance, I mean, I think most people can agree, like their chemistry again was great. Their banter was great. I loved it when he said the line about jumping on a cake with the jazz
Oh
hands
yeah.
and do you live alone? And then she's like, do you live alone? I mean, just all of that. I found that to be such a great, like, I mean, you can kind of really get to know the characters. Like, obviously, we know that they're good together, but that kind of gave those characters, Nelly and Mick, kind of the background that you need on them on screen. So I enjoyed that little banter at the diner because you always, I love a great diner in a mystery. Like, that is my favorite little side place, is a fun diner. So I appreciated that. So I thought those
Complete,
two
by the way,
did great.
complete with the little milkshakes and everything
I know
like that.
the cute little red and white straw. And they completed, having watched it the second time, I was like, oh, he even brought the jazz hands at the
Right.
end of the movie. He brought them back. And so I loved that they kept that kind of little thread of a joke throughout. So, and again, that could have been Kavan just kind of throwing it in there, or maybe it was in the script, but that was a great little callback to earlier in the movie.
Speaking of the callback, they did the juice box. Early on, she drinks the
Yeah.
juice box and it's like, what the hell are you doing? And at the end, here's your juice
We get the
box,
juice
right?
box.
So, like, yeah, there were like a whole bunch of, like, for me, just a whole bunch of those little moments in there that I liked. And yeah, why I didn't get the feels like, oh, there's some, hot chemistry going on. To your point, there's definitely chemistry going on, and it's what you want in that first episode of, oh, what's your situation? What's my situation? What's your background? And just sort of laying that groundwork, like you said. You know that they're two single people, and you know they kind of like. I think you got enough of a feel like they look at each other and go, "Well, you're not the ugliest person on the planet, right?" So it laid groundwork, but it didn't do anything more, and that's all we need in a first episode, and it gave us more of their character, which is what we want. So kudos.
What about your character? Who was your character corner?
All right. So as I mentioned, it was great casting. I loved the array of different characters. Um, my main complaint about it though was I wanted more Nelson Wong. Like he's so good, and when I saw he was in this, very excited. But then also Kendall Cross. I'm a huge Kendall Cross fan. Like she's in every single mystery, and as I joked, she's gotta be a suspect. Like, and she was like the one person too, I guess, who
Who
was
was not?
never really a suspect. Like they should have given her a little something because she is so good at that. Whereas, she had a fun role, but she was just really kind of like basically a one scene and done kind of thing. Like, so I wanted more Kendall Cross, but so be it. I'm gonna have to go with Fiona, her work buddy. She just I thought was fantastic, great friend. I love the way she was supportive in there. And for me, and this was a movie that had like I say, I thought was really well written with a lot of really good dialogue. But my favorite line of the whole movie was when Nelly first heads out and she's like, "Where are you going? You're supposed to be, here writing your column." And then when she did type type, I literally laughed out loud the way she did it, rewound and watched her do it again because it's such a throwaway line, apparently, or seemingly. But for me, that line just made me crack up. So Fiona, fantastic. I looked her up. She's been in a couple other movies, but not to the point of who I remember who she was in those movies. So, but like I said, I loved a lot of the characters in here, and it was great. I would probably want to see more of all of them, and you obviously just don't have enough screen time to do that. What about you?
Well, Fiona was also I was gonna name two. So you took one of mine. My other one, this will be just right up my alley. Who do you think it's gonna be? Rumplesnide.
Grumple.
Of course.
Grumple.
It's
I
like,
knew you were gonna have Grumple.
gosh, I know. Just love the old cranky guy. I don't know. I mean, he was gossipy, but he also loves his privacy. He never places a clock in his bedroom. I also never place a clock in my bedroom. I like that. He also sleeps with a sleep mask. I like that he does that.
That cracked me up too.
I mean, this is
You don't think
someone.
of an old like grump like that guy wearing a
Oh,
sleep mask.
I mean, he's someone you want as a neighbor. He was very much paying attention. He's like, this is what happened at this time. This is what happened at that time. I'm like, hey, if you're not home, like you want this guy next door because he is paying attention to the entire neighborhood.
What?
I can tell you all of the timeline.
You want him next door so he's like showing up, sticking a shotgun in your face?
I mean, hey, if there's an intruder, I guess like that's great.
All right.
I mean, I live in St. Paul, so I'm like in Minnesota. Like we're all on top of each other anyway. So like you're not. I mean, I'm sure there are neighbors like that. I probably have someone down our street who is watching. Actually, I know my neighbor across the street does that. He keeps an eye out. He knows my leave every morning, and he always is like, "Oh, morning. Oh, running late today." So yes,
Uh,
I like those neighbors. So that was my guy. Hopefully, he's in future movies if they do more of these because he could now be with Nelly's grandma in the nursing home
right.
or assisted. I don't know where they were, but wherever he was going to be moving to, like, yes, please have those two like be in future movies. I think that would be a really fun side character comedy back and forth banter. So I'm all for it.
All right.
What about trivia?
Okay, I got a bunch. I actually talked
Oh,
to David, the director, beforehand. I'm like, hey, give me some of the little Easter eggs or some of the trivia stuff I can drop here. And so that's actually why I was late to recording. One, Julian Haig, who played Blake, he's the murder victim in his last two movies. So
oh.
there we go. So apparently Julian should avoid when David calls trying to cast him because he knows he's just going to end up dead. But so And speaking of David, he is on camera 3 times, but you never see his face. I could not
I
tell
feel like you
you
did we not?
the what?
I, the guy who got killed. We didn't see
No, no,
his
no.
face.
David Strasser, the director.
Okay. At first, I was like, no, we know we saw the murder victim. We saw his
No,
face.
No,
Okay,
Julian Haig Blake is the murder victim. David
gotcha.
Strasser is the director. So the director is on camera 3 times, but you never see his face. So I'm
Did
gonna
he
have
tell
to
you
go.
where in the movie?
He
That
did. So I'm gonna have to
okay.
go rewatch it because none of them. It kind of when he said it, I'm like, kind of remember, but no. So one's the hand that wipes the light switch. He pushes the broom and he drops the pen in the Nelly Vision flashback.
It drops the pen. I remember that.
So there you go. That's him. So you have to look at him and go, was that a nice manicure or
Well,
not?
I mean, you just saw the hand drop it, but yes.
All right. And then the last one, speaking of your grumple, is he is actually a double amputee. So what he is walking is on both two-leg prosthetics there, which I did not
Wow.
notice. I did not notice that he
No.
was walking any differently or anything like that. So it's fantastic. And it's interesting because when we talk to the Muse guys, I know Joel Rice, one of the things he always likes to do is make sure that from their casting that they're being very inclusive with their casting and always looking, to make sure they're casting a wide variety of people. And so yes, so having somebody who was a WMVT was kind of interesting. And like obviously played no role in the movie, so it wasn't like he was cast for that. He was just basically cast because he made an excellent grumpy old guy, right? And
Yes.
stuff like that. So it just shows that, hey, way to go.
That's awesome. That's
What do you got?
awesome. Okay, so we talked about Mean Girls. I don't know, last one. So Jill Morrison, who played Helen, she was the main
Right.
diner lady. So she actually was in Mean Girls. She played the crying girl in Mean Girls. And if anyone's thinking like, who is this person? And I totally you when you see it, if you watch Mean Girls a lot, you'll know. The one who gave the speech at the end of Mean Girls, who was up on stage and she starts crying and she's like, "Why can't we all get along like
All right.
rainbows
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
sprinkles?" And then
Okay.
Damien has his hoodie and he's like, "She doesn't even go here." That was the girl on stage. That was Helen. And so now that you see it, I bet you'll probably go back and watch the movie and be like, "Oh, I totally can see
No,
that's her."
as soon as you describe it, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yes, yes. So I thought that was kind of fun. And that's all I had because I found that to be fascinating and it was a nice callback because we just talked about Mean Girls.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I had enough for both of us today. But that's actually a pretty good one because like you say, yeah, it was such a small role in the movie, yet clearly
Very memorable.
I knew exactly who you were talking about as soon as you said which person it was and described the scene. So
Well, what about you for Hallmark and Chill?
we kind
I'm
of
assuming
talked
we
about
probably
it.
have the same movie.
Tip line, crime time, case of Mystery Lane. But
That's
I'm
so
also
interesting that you put tip line in there. I wouldn't put tip line in this category
the
myself.
the
It
reason
was a
why
little more serious.
But the reason why is because you still have that. I found obviously to different extents, but you had Maggie was still real quirky and obviously a different type of quirk, but still
Yeah.
really quirky. And you had that detective who just quickly hopped on board with, okay, I'm going to embrace you. So in that aspect, I found it similar. But yeah, Crime Time was definitely more comedic,
Yeah.
which I think it was, obviously intended to. Tip line was intended to be fun, cute, all of that sort of stuff, but not quite as, yeah, laugh
Over.
out loud throughout the movie. But then along those same lines, I'll put in Wedding Planner Mysteries, which is one of the other ones which I should not like as much as I do because it's pure chaos, but somehow it just Ron Oliver made it work, and that movie just cracks me up, and so I'll throw that in there as well.
Well, then my question, what would you rather have another of, Crime Time or this one?
I I I don't know. Both. I
Really?
mean, I have to pick. I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're Luke
They're both
McFarlane
both
was
are
so
very
good,
fluid.
and Liddy Green. Yeah, no, both. Both.
I'm
And
picking Crime Time.
I
I'm
know
not
you are,
doing the
'cause
cop
you
out.
already said
You
it
yell
earlier.
at the
You'd pick
guests
Crime
when they
Time
pop
over
out of
this.
answers, and you're totally copping out, Eric.
The no, but here's what I'm wondering, and I'm wondering with Plus if some of these this is like
In a
Jane,
second.
some of these are going to be making their home over
Oh, I
on
bet maybe.
streaming. And so we'll be able to see more of them than we normally maybe would have, because there's such a backlog, right? So I don't know.
Well, here's
I
my
plan on
Hallmark
getting
movie.
Plus, so it makes no difference to me where it airs.
Same. My Hallmark and Chill with my Murder She Wrote, because I know people will want to know. Season 1, episode 15 on IMDb or 17 on Peacock. I don't know why the numbers don't match up there, but they don't.
Because then that season one's all messed up because it has like that first one is
Yeah.
double for some
Yeah.
reason.
So yeah, it's the couple hour. Well, this one or any. So this one's called Tough Guys Don't Die. And it has the 1920s music in it in between scenes. Harry McGraw. So if anyone's watched Murder She Wrote, you'll totally know who Harry McGraw is. He's kind of that like very detective from like the 1920s feel to him, and he kind of does a little bit of the voiceover like Francesca. But he has a little bit more comedy to him because most of Murder She Wrote I don't find to be super over the top funny like this. But when he's in those episodes, they make it a little bit more quirky. So I feel like that has the most connection to the Nelly Knows one. And I actually just watched this episode yesterday just to verify which one. So that's one I would
And I'm
recommend.
sure it was such a torture for you to have to watch it too.
I know. And then I found out that they were trying to make the Harry McGraw, they actually made it for a season. It had its own spin-off show. And then it didn't work. So he actually came back into Murder She Wrote for in future episodes down the line. So I
Yeah.
found that to be an interesting little tidbit as well. So there's another trivia for you.
It has nothing to do with this movie, but you figured out a way
No,
to
no,
get it in there.
Murder She Wrote trivia. Why not?
All right.
So here's my fan corner. Here's what I had. So 5 out of 5, 19% of people. 4 out of 5 was the biggest, barely, like by one vote, 37%. 3 out of 5, 35%. And then 1/2 stars, 9%.
Eh,
So of them, like three, probably about where I was, like a 3.5, like right in that kind of middle bridge. Like, yes, again, same as we talked about, like with Gilded, if they tweaked a little bit, I think if they took down like Nelly a little bit from her super over the top quirkiness, I think that would help. That's everyone that DM'd me, and personally, it's very similar to
you just have
Rosemary.
a bunch of haters.
But if you don't watch the one called the Heart, so she played her character very similar to Rosemary, and so that's where I think
Well,
some of
just
the complaints were.
stop watching that then, and then you'll
I
enjoy
don't
this
watch
more.
it. I watched it the one season, and that
Well,
was
obviously
plenty.
it ruined you and tainted you. So
Did. Oh, well, our next movie for next week. So we have, before we get into the new Jane and Cases coming in September, because we did our bracket challenge, we said we were going to review a fan voted on movie based on the number one pick. So of course, everyone, Mystery 101 was our big winner.
oh wait, that
And
one?
then,
I didn't realize
yes.
Mystery 101 was
And
the
I don't think we've
fan
ever
favorite.
reviewed Mystery 101. So this is also really going to be interesting. We are going to be reviewing Killer Timing. So it's movie 6. It's the last movie of the series. So we'll see how that goes. But that will be next week. So watch that again if you haven't in a while, and we'll give our takes on it.
Well, there we go. All right. Why did Hallmark cancel it? Darn you, Hallmark. Obviously
We
I'm
will
being
maybe answer that question. No, I'm just kidding.
no, I'm being facetious. Everyone
Maybe
should
we'll
know.
speculate. All
It's not
speculation.
like I say, it's Mystery 101, while it strangely is not on either of our top five, I think we both agree it's still a great series. It's just we kind of, as this actually, I think this episode showed, for me, I like the quirkiness of a lot of mysteries and stuff, and you have your little small town feel that you like in yours. And so, we have our thing that we particularly like. And unfortunately, Mystery 101 doesn't fit that. But by no means is that a diss on Mystery 101, because it is a, fan favorite by a landslide for a reason, because it's just a quality series. So, but we will dissect it.
That we will do.
All right, Andrea, this was fun. You should be enjoying your vacation, even though you're not going to Biltmore. But
I know,
that's okay.
$100 a ticket. Like, that's a lot. That's like Disney World prices to bring a 1-year-old and an 8-year-old to. That's not super fun. Even though kids are free in the summer right now.
I'm sure they would have a blast.
Looking at all this stuff. As my husband is laughing as he's walking through the room.
He's like, oh, thank God.
So. Yes.
All right.
All right.
Well, good times. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye, Andrea.